Now we welcome in a man who we saw all of, 15 hours ago. But still, we want to talk to him because he's always got great insight. David Nixon, former BYU great and NFL linebacker on the Deseret First Credit Union Hotline. David, long time no see.
Hey, the last time I saw Jerem, I think he hit a 340, 350-yard drive. I mean, it was impressive. We're talking like Bryson DeChambeau or Brooks Koepka style.
Yep.
Impressive.
Yeah, and someone had a Bruce Koepka or Brooks Koepka reaction to it, which was really weird. But anyway, that was fun out there. It was hot, but it was very fun. And I know you were hoping to be the most famous guy there. You were not because Jimmer Fredette was there.
Hey, Jimmer and I caught up. His golf game's gotten better. He actually got the closest to the hole award on a par 3, so closer to the pin. So good for him. But it's a fun event every year. You get to see all the guys, Jimmer and other players in the past, as well as all the administration. Connie was out there, so you guys were out there. But a fun event all around. Hot but fun.
Oh, my goodness, yes. 107 degrees yesterday. I know everybody in Phoenix is like, it was 120 down here. Don't even tell me. David Nixon with us on BYU Sports Nation. While it is hot outside, we are discussing a few hot topics that approach in BYU Football Media Day tomorrow. Of course, Jerem just outlined everything that's going to happen live on BYUtv. David, what question or questions do you want answered tomorrow at the 2021 edition of BYU Football Media Day?
For me, there's not a lot of lingering questions out there. I think the main one, obviously, is who's going to be the quarterback day one for this BYU team that roll out against Arizona. Listen, I don't think they're going to answer that, so I'm not too optimistic on that one, too wishful. But from everything I've heard, I was down at the camp, the Cubs camp. I had my kids in that camp just last week and talked to a couple of coaches, and they said all three quarterbacks are super capable right now. This same conversation came up, and they're pretty confident with all three horses. So, listen, BYU's in a fantastic position when it comes to this quarterback position. You got two guys that have game time experience, and you got a freshman who, from all reports, had a fantastic fall last year as the scout team quarterback. And so for me, I feel like this team is in great hands. And then, of course, we talk about all the other skill positions. Wide receiver, this might be our best wide receiver unit we've ever had. We look at the depth and the guys and the coaches of firmness. This is what they told. They told me this wide receiver position is the best they've had, and they've been here for years. So, you go back and look at guys at every position, and I'm going to rope in the tight ends. The tight ends are up there as well. I mean, I'm stoked for this team. Running back, offensive line, that offensive unit is solid. And as we know, football, it's all about scoring points, even though I'm a defensive guy, and I hate to admit that. But it's all about putting up points. And I think this team has, especially depending on whatever quarterback they roll out there, I think any quarterback in this offense has the capability to put up big points this coming fall.
It's super exciting. Regarding the quarterbacks, I'll be very surprised if it's not Jaren Hall. I just think what he can do with his feet gives you a chance in some of these Power 5 games, of which there are 7, that perhaps a Baylor Romney who is crazy efficient, executes the game plan, has done nothing wrong when he's been on the field. And then for Jacob Conover is going to be a baller, and he's going to be the guy here. I just don't want to throw a freshman out against 7 Power 5s. I just don't. So do you feel like a guy has a leg up among the 3?
Yeah, I would agree. Listen, I think Jaren has the leg up. And I think for him, I think the only way he gets dethroned, if you will, is if he creates a lot of turnovers, isn't making good decisions throughout fall camp. And one of these other guys, Baylor or Conover, comes in and they're able to demonstrate that they can take care of the ball. I mean, that's first and foremost. In college football, you have to take care of the ball. We learned the lesson on that one a few years ago when Zach was still going through his growing pains. So, I think Jaren's got the leg up, but once again, a lot of it will come down to fall ball, and that's what the coaches are saying. They're saying we're going to let this thing play out. There's no reason to go out there and name a starter. I go back and forth on that. I think it is good for a team to know who their leader is, who their captain is. I don't think you want to prolong that decision too long into camp, but I guarantee you right now, with these player run practices going on, with the players being around, the off-season workouts, they have a pretty good feeling of who that guy is. But once again, it can all change with camp and depending on how those guys go out there and perform.
David, without question, the 12-team playoff recommendation will be talked about early during State of the Program with Tom Holmoe and Kalani Sitake on BYUtv, 11 a.m. Eastern. Before we hear from the athletic director tomorrow and from BYU football's head coach on the matter, what are your thoughts on expanding the college football playoff from 4 to 12 teams and how it will impact BYU.
I mean, I think we're saying the obvious here. It's fantastic. If you're a BYU fan, you don't love this, something is wrong with you, because now BYU potential seat at the table. And not only that, but BYU has the potential to lose a game, like we saw last year with Coastal Carolina, and still potentially climb back into that top 12 and get one of those bids. So, I love the format. I love the fact that they've expanded it. Now BYU has, a chance to get their way in. And I think it's just good for college football. Look at the NFL playoffs. There's nothing, frankly, for me, there's nothing more riveting than watching, wild card games on Saturdays and Sundays early on and just watching football. So here's one more opportunity to have some meaningful football. Once again, bowl games, as much as we love them, it's one more opportunity for the kids to play and be showcased. There's not much on the line. You win or lose is not going to really do much to the destiny of your program. Whereas in here, you can get a team that's hot, that has maybe some injuries early in the season, that lost a game or two. Those guys get healthy and you can make a run at the end. So I love it. I think BYU, once again, now potentially has a seat at the table. Now they just got to take care of business. But we've seen from years past with this playoff, it's the big top 4 schools, and they're not letting a lot of other guys into that game. Now they're going to have to with the format they're going with. So I think it's exciting. I think the fact that you play at your home field, that's not at a neutral site for those first round or two, I think that's fun as well. So far I'm on board. Hopefully it gets fully approved and they get this thing rocking and rolling.
BYU's best chance at making the playoff in a 12-team situation is probably joining the AAC. When we say join a G5, we're not talking about the Mountain West. That ain't happening. But if BYU joins the AAC, now BYU can have a 10-2 regular season, win the league, and potentially be the highest ranked or second highest ranked or something, conference champion, depending on how the Power Fives play out. So do you feel like BYU should seriously look, or maybe you feel like Independent's a better spot, you tell me, should BYU seriously look at joining a conference by 2023 to take advantage of this?
Here's my own personal take. I think long-term, if you have the long-term vision on, yes. I think short-term, I personally think there's going to be some reshuffling with how this new playoff format has come about. I think you're going to see some potential reshuffling with the P5s. And I think you're going to see teams that are trying to add to their conference to bolster their chances to land one of those top 4 seeds or not. Because there's going to be one guy left out of that top 4 seed, those buys, right? And so they need to make sure their strength of schedule is up to par. So I think there's going to be something that changes there. But I think long-term, if BYU can't find a way to once again navigate through this whole P5 and find a home here in the next little bit, I think it's something worth looking at, especially once again, the whole end game here is to get to the playoff.
Is it?
Get money and, of course, make it into to see how far you can make a run. So I think it's worth visiting for sure.
Is it the end game, though? I think BYU's end game is to be on ESPN. I don't think it's to make a playoff. I think it's to maximize the situation.
I think now it is. When you open, I think prior to try to make the playoff.
Join a league then.
Yeah. Oh, that's what I'm getting at. We'll see what happens in the next little bit, because I think there will be some reshuffling.
So
that's the end game, which I believe it is. I think that's a potential.
With the Power 5, though, let's talk about this. If BYU joins the Power 5, you can kiss the playoff chances goodbye, right? But because BYU's not going to be at the upper echelon of BYU's not going to win a Power 5 conference if it's in it. It's going to be kind of in the middle, maybe upper tier some years, right?
Well, there are 6 at-large spots.
Right, 6 at-large spots. Would BYU be the third best team in a Power 5 once, maybe? Maybe. If the playoff's the end game, Group of 5 is probably the route. Independence, you just have to cool the scheduling back, which I don't see happening. So it is interesting because, to me, the best play overall for BYU football, get into a Power 5 if you can, if it's even possible. We'll see, given the off-the-field concerns relative to BYU. So it's really interesting because what is the end game? What does BYU want? Can BYU even get into a Power 5? Is Indy the way to go forever? I'm not sure what the answer to these questions are, but it's certainly cooking up in an interesting way now.
Well, I would agree. And is joining the AAC and traveling all the way to Florida and back to the East Coast week in, week out, is that the answer? I don't know if that's the answer either. Is joining the Mountain West, where maybe your chances of becoming that, the G5 bid becomes less because it's not as strong as the AAC. I mean, there's a lot of questions out there. And once again, I think there will be some type of reshuffling with now this format being rolled out. And I think there's still some details to be emerged from this 12-team playoff too. I don't know if it's necessarily all set in concrete as well. I think they're trying to figure it out. You saw Notre Dame kind of up in arms about the fact that they couldn't achieve one of those top spots regardless of the season they've had. So I think everything's still pretty preliminary. But if you're BYU, I get that you want to maximize dollars and revenue. I get that you want to be on ESPN. But you can't sell the recruits if that's your end goal. You got to be able to sell the recruits if we want to make the playoff and make some noise, and maybe we have a Cinderella year where we can make a run. But if that's not your end goal, then I think you probably have to shift your priorities a little bit.
Okay, so let's reset the table here, David. Listening to everything that you just said, are you in favor of BYU staying independent for the next, 2 to 5 years, and then making a decision about whether or not to pursue, let's say, a Group of 5 conference?
I think as things continue to shake out, yes. I mean, you know me, I've always been against going back to a G5. But now that this playoff is expanded and now they have a seat at the table, that's been stated, then I think I'd be in favor of it. And once again, I'm shifting tunes a little bit here, but things have changed with this college football landscape. And for me, it's getting a shot at the college football playoff. That's your goal. You got to get a shot. You got to make it to the big dance, as we know with basketball. So it's the same thing with football. You got to find a way to get in, and maybe independence with the out-large, maybe that's still achievable. But when you're beating yourself up with 7 P5 teams, it makes it obviously much more difficult. And so the thing with BYU being independent, you have to have a Cinderella year. You have to be able to go out there and beat those P5 teams, make a run. Maybe you can afford to lose one game and still get in as an out-large. But your track, you don't have to have a Cinderella year if you're part of a G5 at this point. So I think that's the takeaway. You can make a few more mistakes as a G5, as a member of a G5, or as an independent, you got to be on it. You can't afford to make those same mistakes.
Take us back to. Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say I'm going to send you the schedules for 2022 and 2023, David, and we're going to talk later about whether or not you feel. Not the 2021 schedule, but the next 2 years, if those accommodate a potential run to the top 12 for BYU football. But we'll save that for another.
Yeah, I've seen them. I'm with you. They're brutal. They're brutal. That's been independence. That is what it is. But I'm saying we got to let this play out a little bit. This is still so fresh that we don't know if the college football playoff committee is going to stick with what they proposed. We don't know if conferences are going to stick with what they've got. There's always rumors of people being disgruntled, schools being disgruntled. So there's still lots to be played out here and to see if there's a trickle-down effect from this announcement, if it's going to affect any of these P5s or G5s. Maybe there's some shift within the G5s as well. So I think you've got to pump the brakes a little bit. Don't jump to conclusions yet. Let it play out. Go through this 2021 season and see what happens in the next few years, considering this doesn't come into play for another, until the 2023 season. So we've got a little bit of time.
Sure, and I should clarify, and maybe I'm crazy and need to put on the blue goggles, but David, I think that the 2022 and 2023 schedules are actually conducive to BYU staying independent. I think they're favorable, dare I say, with only 4 Power 5s and not a ton of world beaters. So, yeah, I wanted to clarify there, but I'm with you. I like independence for the next few years.
I wonder if independence is actually a better route for what BYU wants. Let's be honest. BYU is uncomfortable with the idea of having someone else tell them how to do stuff. That's why BYU is independent. There was so much scar tissue from the bad marriage at the end of the Mountain West, right? If BYU jumps into a league and now is dictated in a different way with football, that's the concession BYU is going to have to make. I wonder if BYU wants to do that at some point in the future to maybe make the playoff. I'm not sure.
Well, I think BYU, from their leverage standpoint, and coming in those negotiations, would have some leverage there to be able to pull and hopefully be able to bring in a BYUtv to help showcase and broadcast some games. And I think they'd have a little more sway this time around than they did maybe originally with Mountain West. But I agree. Here's the thing about the independence is I remember when we scheduled Minnesota a few years ago, and I think the pandemic knocked that out, or I can't remember what happened. Yes. But anyways, Minnesota, some of these teams will rise and fall, right? And depending on when you play them, and we're scheduling games out 10 years in advance. And so sometimes with independence, you just never know what you're going to get, if it's going to be a soft or a hard schedule, depending on coaching changes and whatever happens. So it's just tough to predict, obviously. Whereas if you're part of a G5, you know kind of the teams you're going to be playing that year. But I still, I'm torn on this because you guys know my argument for going to a G5 is that when you're going up against the team up north in a recruiting battle, they're always going to be able to say, listen, we're in the Pac-12 and you're in the AAC. And I think the Pac-12 will win out every day against recruit. Whereas at least Kalani right now with Independence, he has a different pitch of, hey, we're on ESPN every single week. We're playing prime times. We're playing against top tier schools and cool venues, aka Vegas. I mean, he's got a cool pitch you can go to these recruits with. Whereas when you resort to a G5, it makes it a little tougher. But at the same time, he can start making the pitch of going to the playoffs. So I don't know. Go back to your original question in this interview. What do you want to hear from Tom Homo and Kalani? Maybe it's that. But can you guys lay out the pros and cons of going to a G5 or seeing Independent? Maybe that's what we want to hear.
David, great stuff, man. Let's talk about how BYU is going to beat that team up north next time we get on the golf course, all right?
I love it. I'm always up for that talk.